Welcome to the Kingdom Educators podcast, where we empower Christian teachers to grab a hold of heaven's hope-filled perspective so you can activate transformational impact in your classroom and community. I'm your host, Jessica Glover, and I warmly welcome you to wake up to your strategic placement as a kingdom educator, anointed by the Creator and equipped by all of heaven to release the radical goodness of God that will transform lives and reshape education. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kingdom Educators podcast. We are moving forward with our boundaries unit or session, if you will, in our podcast. And I thought it would be good if we took a look at that to-do list that you have, because often the to-do list needs to have some boundaries around it. So I have invited Elizabeth Schmus back from Christian Educators. She comes to us with this wealth of knowledge around the mama life, the wife, the teaching in the classroom. She's got like this fun way of organizing all of these pieces that we can sometimes get overwhelmed with, or they end up encroaching on important areas of our lives. So we do not need our to-do list to get in the way. So Elizabeth, welcome back today.
Thanks for having me again, Jessica.
Yes, thank you for coming on. I would love to know, when did you realize that you needed boundaries when it came to your teacher tasks at school?
Like right away. I would say, gosh, I got married and in 1992 and jumped right into student teaching. And I was getting multiple credentials at the time because it's a long story, but I wanted to work on movie sets.
Oh,
we ended up, God switched a year. Once I got my credentials in elementary and 2 secondary credentials so that I could do work on movie sets, God directed us a new region, if you will, within California, and that wasn't going to be feasible anymore.
Okay.
But at the time I was newly married and I was working too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm doing all the student teaching and all the classes on top of it. And I just was getting exhausted too often. And so I just kind of, even that student teaching seminar, and just be like, I don't know how you guys are doing it. I can't do this, or I can't do that, or how do I simplify this or that? And I also was going to, I don't know if anyone listening remembers a writer named Emily Barnes, that she did home seminars on how to get your home organized. And she had books and stuff that you could also take a visit to her home. And she'd walk you through like seminar. And also you go through her home, you could even open drawers and things. And I just kind of knew like I needed a little more structure than because I was an overachiever and I had gotten by on just kind of staying up late or getting up early and getting it all done. And you just can't do that anymore. You just run out of that at some point.
Some people start their career while they're single and they get married, and so they have to make that adjustment then, or maybe they already have a full family. They're married and they have kids, whether you're a mom or a dad. And there's like huge levels of that boundaries of even like kind of what you're alluding to even is, I have another relationship outside of my job that I need to cultivate and take care of. So it needs to be separate from my work. And so finding those tips and tricks to be able to do that is so key. So where did you learn some of the boundaries you use now as a mom in your home? Because we know that you're on your second round of kids with adoption, and like there's all these pieces around. You still work with Christian educators. You first utilize these practices in your classroom. What are they? Share them with us.
I would say back in 2017, I think it was, I went back to a more traditional classroom setting as an educator. Dave was already working with Christian educators. I think that was the year he became executive director. I just bought Linda Cardamus's classroom management thing.
Okay.
And I just kind of jumped on her site. We had known about her, both of us doing ministry. And I was like, let's see what she has to, and I would glean from other teachers, and obviously things I had done in the past, came up. But I'd say the number one thing that I really clung to is something I had done in my home for years, but I hadn't connected it with teaching until that year, which was really kind of bundling tasks. So I had a lesson planning day, and during my prep period, because I was school math and science that year, I would work on that. And, one day a week, I would do all my photocopies for the next week. And one day a week, so I had things I did each day of the week that I bundled. It doesn't mean I never had to run and get a photocopy, but I didn't have to think about it every day. Yeah. And I wasn't like every day scrambling for a lesson plan, and I wasn't every day trying to do all the grading or trying to update my bulletin board. So if I bundled things like that, it really helped my mind. It took a lot off the mental load for me because I didn't have to think about 10 things every day in that same way. I could kind of bundle and group them. And I would say I had done that in my home before, where it was like with chores. I remember like starting out as new mom, I stayed home with my baby and I was kind of overwhelmed. And you remember those days. I have a daughter who has a 10-day-old baby. And I remember when like, you're like, I can take a shower or I can fix food.
Yep. You got to choose.
And so I remember having like a little card file and I would just do the next chore. Instead of thinking the whole house has to be clean, I'd think today is vacuuming day. And if I don't vacuum today, well, it's going to be a week till I vacuum again. But you know what? It's okay. Because what I had been doing is, I missed vacuuming on Monday. And then I missed this on Tuesday. And all of a sudden by Friday, I have 5 things and I'm not doing anything. And so things like that kind of helped me let go. And we all know we don't have to be perfect and we don't have to do it all, but it kind of helped me set up a little bit of a routine. So that next week when it was vacuum day, if you will, I would be like, oh my gosh, my floors are so gross. And I would really be motivated to vacuum. And it's not that I never did it in between, but I just kind of tried to bundle and group things together that I would do on certain days so that I didn't have to be overwhelmed with the magnitude of housework and the magnitude of shopping or meal planning, the magnitude of my whole teaching career life. Even with working with Christian educators, we first brought our baby Hope home. It was kind of like, okay, well, nap times is going to be when I schedule meetings. And so I just could kind of get some things in place.
Yeah.
Today, I'm going to put a lot of things into this day and hire a babysitter on this day, but not on that day. Or it just would really help to kind of not try to do everything every day. That's just too much to touch or think about. My brain can't do it.
I love that, breaking the task down. Like I remember when I first had our daughter, because I have a big family and I was overwhelmed by not being able to do the things I'd done before with so many kids.
Yep.
Now I had a baby home with me all the time. And I remember listening to this great suggestion from a mama podcast. If you could just at the very end of the day, make sure that your kitchen is clean, so it's ready for the next morning and all the things are picked up and put in the baskets. And I, of course, with like my teacher brain was like, no, I teach the kids how to do this because as soon as they get the routines down, then I've got a huge amount of help. But when I got to that place, it just felt better when I woke up in the morning. I didn't wake up to feeling overwhelmed because those little things, we're done.
Yeah, no, that's been huge. I've trained all of my children to do, they have a daily task and they take their dishes up and get them in the dishwasher as soon as they're old enough to do so. And I find little things, even my 3-year-old can sort the daily silverware, out of the dishwasher and put them in the right little sections in the drawer. And she loves it. Definitely learning how to delegate to our children and to our families and get everyone on board with that is fun. Even if you play some wild, fun music or you race to get a couple of things done. But that way, if there's just a little something to do, it goes so much better if we're all sharing. And I think that's huge. I think a clean sink before you go to bed, I have learned that I don't function well. I can do it. I can leave the dishes, but I'm telling you, the next day I'm like not functioning well. And if I can just get the dishes even rinsed and ready to put in the dishwasher and have a clean sink when I go to make my coffee or whatever, it just makes my whole brain work better. And the same with the picking up. You just that nightly pickup, even if it's just in a basket. A lot of times if the little ones didn't get all their things and I find more, I just put it in a basket right outside their door. Just kind of helps bring down the pressure. Yes. But it's the same with our classrooms, right? One of my classrooms, all the kids had to put their chairs up on top of the desks at one school because they would come through and do floor as custodians. Yes. And God bless the custodians. Isn't that amazing? I don't know what I would have done if I had to keep that classroom clean myself as well. Just giving the kids all jobs like that. We have a teacher in California just was struggling with this in her classroom. And she was a brand new believer, actually. And so she was like,
that's awesome.
I'm just going to pray about this. She had been struggling with it. And she was just praying, Lord, show me how to organize my class. I have too much to do. I can't keep track of it. And she and the Lord just invented, if you will, this little classroom system for this kid had this job and this kid had this job. And I know there's so many different kinds of classrooms and there's classroom management courses you can take,
that's
but
good.
Just pray about it. God and you can work it out. And she said it changed night and day how her school life ran, to just have some
Yeah.
systems like
Oh, I
that
love
she
that.
worked out with the Lord.
I love the thought, even with your tasks. I have to do this on Monday, my Monday bucket and my Tuesday bucket, and just thinking how our own brains are, you're wired
Yeah.
differently than I am. And then I love the teacher praying to ask God, well, what's going to work best for me and my students even that year? So good. So be an encouragement to you, teacher, that there's so many ways to do this, but just thinking, God, like, what's the easiest and most funnest way for me and my students this year to be able to help us feel organized? It's really, I think, for your teacher heart, so that you feel like you have space to think and get the things done that are most important, which are really leading us to relationship with our kids, and feeling like we're equipped to deliver the curriculum to whatever
Right.
degree we need to for that year. Sometimes we know it really well, and other times we are brand new. So it takes more time,
Yeah.
but just alleviating the stress with that.
And honestly, there's so many studies that show that kids grow up doing chores, feel like part of their family. They feel more connected. Having that responsibility just grows them in so many ways. And I think it's the same in our classrooms. I think kids that have a job, they show up like, this is my job and I'm going to do this today and or this week. But I think it really does a disservice to our families when we even try to do everything ourselves. So we can't. Our job is to just have an overview of what needs doing and then figure out how to task those things. And paying for a housekeeper is a fantastic trade. When you're teaching in the classroom all day and then you get home and have to clean your entire house, I mean, trade a couple of those hours. I know as teachers don't get paid hourly, but I'm trading a couple hours from my teaching week for someone else to do this. Same with meal prep or whatever. It doesn't matter who gets it done. I feel like my job is just to kind of make sure we thought about it, or it's gotten assigned to someone, or we're tasking that out to an outside source. I'm a people person. So when I had really little ones and I was staying home with babies at the time, I would find a friend and I'd be like, let's just go to each other's house and help each other. Cause then I'm like chatting with my friend and kind of dealing with baby, but you're also helping each other accomplish something. It just felt like a win-win. Same with lesson planning. I love to lesson plan with another teacher. I like talking out loud, thinking it through out. So I'd say whatever works for you, figure out a time. But I had coffee with a teacher every week to kind of talk through lesson planning, and we would plan the same, and then we could each tweak it a little for our classroom.
Yeah. Could you share how the bucket idea helped you have healthy boundaries? Being able to, on Mondays, I do this, on Tuesdays, I do this, kind of divvying out the whole scope of what needs to get done during the week. How has that helped you as boundary around protecting your home life from your work life?
I think it got me home earlier every day from school. Like I had my after school task, that was what I was going to do that day. Not that it could never be changed, but it just helped streamline that. I didn't get to that, I'm so exhausted and I have 50 things to do, and now I feel like I have to do them all. I'd be like, yes, I do need to respond to maybe all these emails, but which ones really need today and which ones can be late? I can bundle and respond. I think Linda Cardamus had a great idea with that too. And I kind of had some form emails, like where I'd written template, if you will, and I would plug in the information as I went. And I know for me, I always left a sub plan on my desk just in case me or kid got sick. It was there because I can't wake up in the morning and think of a whole sub plan for the day. So I just would leave my notes from what I was going to do out for a sub, and then always had that reserved sub plan if like it all flew out the window. But I would just leave that on my desk when I went home from work. I think what I'm hearing you say is, how did assigning tasks daily help? And I guess it's just that, like, even when I'm at home, I don't feel like I have to do laundry every single day because I know there's a time I'm going to do that. Now, other times I do one load every day, and that makes the most sense instead of letting it back up. So separating it out into buckets helped me mentally not think I have to do everything all the time, or I have to get it all done to then rest. I say, well, I did my thing today, or I got a lot of it done, and now it's time to go home and be with my family. Because we took a class. My husband went to seminary back in the 90s, and we got to take a class called The Family of the Christian Leader from an amazing couple who still mentors us. And they talked about the fact that pastors often come in, and you think about a pastor and as a job that never ends. They don't even get vacation in the summer, right? They don't even really get weekends because maybe Saturdays are day off, but they've got weddings and funerals and whatever. And she said, pastorships often come to an end. And when you're driving your moving truck away from that region that you've been serving, your family is in the truck with you. And none of the people from your church, none of the people from the board, so none of your administrators, none of the parents of your students are in that truck going home with you. So when I go home from school, the idea is I'm not checking my email.
That's good. Yeah.
I don't give out my phone number. I'm not checking tests. I finish my email at the end of the day. If someone has a problem with homework that night, I have to figure out kind of a different system the next day for helping them because they can't call me all night. I have another life, and that life is the life that goes on regardless of the job or the year or the assignment. And I think it's hard. I think so many teachers were type A and we've gotten these good grades in school. And so we just think we need to keep at that pace. And I think it's just impossible. But we don't want to sacrifice getting good grades at work in that way for time spent with our family.
That's good.
So I think for me, the bucket idea was like, well, I'm going to finish these copies. And even if everything's not done, that's done. And I'm going to go home.
Protecting those most important relationships that are with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Our kids, our spouses, other family members, parents or siblings or cousins or whoever, and your church family. I mean, you need time to foster other relationships. 2017, when I was back in the classroom 5 days, it had been a while. It was first week of school, and then it was the weekend, and we always did this fun thing on Labor Day weekend. And I was gathering up a bunch of things and grading to take with me. And this younger, sweet, not married, no kids, she looked at me and she's like, you need to just go enjoy your weekend with your family. It's okay if everything doesn't get graded weekend. I needed someone to tell me that.
Yeah.
I don't spend all of Labor Day weekend grading. It is okay. And I needed to figure out some ways not to grade everything myself, not to see it all myself. And I know our teachers know that. And there's so many resources out there to help them with.
But it's a good reminder, like you said.
Yeah, like rethinking my work. Okay, to get the A++, I would put all this work in and have the Pinterest board and whatever. But what is work and is helpful for my students and is sustainable?
Yes.
Making sustainability the choice for what I put into my classroom instead of doing it the best, most Disneyland awesome teacher way.
Right.
That really did help a lot. And I know there's seasons like setting up your class at the beginning of the year. That's a big bucket, right? And that took some extra time. And I could bring my kids and my husband could help. And there could be some times when it was a little more than usual. It just couldn't live that way, couldn't stay sustainable. But I know one thing that I always struggled with as a teacher was remembering to do the positive things, to comment to the students positively or write a positive note home, because you have so many problems coming at you and you're like putting out fires all the time and getting to things. So I just made it a discipline to do that every week. I would pick someone from each of my classes and I'd write that note, send it home. And I just made sure that by the time I got to the end of the year, every kid in my class had gotten a note home praising their attributes or work ethic or whatever it was I find positive about that student.
Yeah.
That was one of my buckets, something I did once a week. And it was so much less overwhelming than I just need to do this and it's always there and I'm never doing it.
Like giving a note to every single kid every week. That would be insane.
Right. Right. So cutting it down to once a week, I'm going to pick one kid from every class and that's what I'm going to do, getting through it by the end of the year.
So I hear you saying find things that are doable and then just keep them sustainable by making these systems for yourself that make it so that you're working on a little bit every single day. And then that keeps everything in line. That's really, really good.
This is kind of a side note, but build in fun rewards for the things you hate doing. That is huge for me. If let's say you could just spend hours scrolling social media, right? But I'm not exercising. So maybe I'm going to get on my treadmill and look at social media and that's it. When the treadmill's over, the social media is over. So maybe I walk longer because I'm really engrossed, but also I've set a limit, right? So there's like a reward for getting on the treadmill is getting to connect over social media or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you two things. One is teaching, one is not. The teaching one is when I would get math tests, I'd grab them. I'd go to our local, we have In-N-Out here in Southern California. I'd get the biggest iced tea I could get. And I would just plow through and I'd be like, yes, I'm here. I'm enjoying my iced tea and I'm going to go as fast as I can and get through these tests. And so I would just kind of reward myself, if you will. I'm a big tea lover. But on the offhand, like going to doctor's appointments is really stressful, right? We had a son go be with the Lord as an infant. And then I'm also a cancer survivor. So I have a lot of PTSD around anything medical.
Yeah.
So back then I did it and then it kind of slowed down for a long time. But then with adopting these two kiddos, we had so many appointments at the beginning and I was just stressed out about it that I just rewarded myself every time. If I go through and get my favorite iced tea or hot tea, every time I made it to a doctor's appointment, I'd be like, yay, you did it. I don't do a Starbucks run every morning or anything like that. So it was a treat, but finding some way to reward yourself for doing the things you don't want to do so they don't stack up and bury you was really helpful.
So, as we're wrapping up today, would you be willing to pray for teachers who they just need some revelation how to make this whole boundary bucket idea, the organizational components, how to put it all together? Would you be willing to pray for them, Elizabeth?
I will.
Okay.
Lord, I bless the teachers listening to this, Lord. I bless those who are just feeling frazzled and overwhelmed, and there's so much to do. It's hard to even keep track of it all, Lord. I pray that you would meet them in their time with you, Lord, that they spend time with you, praying and talking to you like you're their best friend. You're their best teacher mentor, Lord, because you are the best teacher that ever was, Lord. And we just pray that you would work with them to find ways to structure their time and their tasks, Lord, kind of like we budget our money and our finances. Lord, I pray that they would learn to budget their time and their tasks, and that you would give them effective organizational tools and boundaries, Lord, so that they're working effectively, but that they're also living the rest of their life effectively as well, Lord, that they have time to read and connect with people and have a family and be outside and serve in their church, or all the different things that make up who we are as people, Lord. I pray that those would not be forgotten or sacrificed on the altar of work, Lord. And I know the first year or two of teaching can be the most overwhelming, Lord. Lord, you say you gently lead those who have young. And I always think new teachers, Lord, just that you're gentle and humble in heart, Lord, and you offer to walk in the yoke with us. And so I pray that, Lord, I pray that this bucket idea or bundling tasks at home or at work would really minister to teachers, or that you would come up with another way, Lord, that they can let go of the mental load of knowing everything they have to do, and that they would effectively be able to focus on the relationships in their classroom and their relationship with you and their relationship with their people outside of their classroom, Lord, and the tasks would not get in the way and prevent those eternal connections, Lord, from happening. Give them grace, give them mercy, Lord, help their spirit, grace, Lord, for struggling students, Lord, give them that grace for themselves, and also, Lord, help them to see themselves the way you see them, Lord. So I pray that they would just have grace and mercy on themselves as they sort through some routines that are sustainable. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, so much for sharing some of your experience in the world of organizational boundaries, because they are so important.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. And I do want to plug, there are so many people in the space of helping with time management and classroom management and home management. There's so many people in those spaces. Don't read too many of them, but grab one and try a new idea this week. And whatever new idea works, try another one next month, or whatever you can do to not overwhelm yourself, but to start bringing some order to your life so that you can relax a little.
Well, thank you for the bits of wisdom.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends in education so they too can be strengthened and encouraged in living their kingdom identity out loud in this pivotal hour. And please visit kingdomeducators.com to receive your Kingdom Educator Daily Truth Declarations, my encouraging newsletter, and be the first to know about my newest resources online and in-person events. And be sure to find me on the socials at kingdom.educators. Until next time, don't forget you are a history maker, and what you do every day is transforming lives.